Tommie Runz, welcome to the Free Trip Podcast, buddy. How you doing?
Man, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I'm actually just relaxing, chilling. I just got back from Eugene,
Yeah.
so I'm happy.
Yeah, man, you've been bouncing around the country from marathon to marathon and then at the same time running between Los Angeles and Las Vegas.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm happy. Like the bouncing around from marathon to marathon so far this year hasn't been me running because of that Las Vegas situation. So I haven't had FOMO. Like I had FOMO a little bit yesterday in
Yeah.
Eugene. I did not have any FOMO at all in Boston. I just saw people running. Like this is good. You guys keep going. Keep
Like
going.
I've
You
already
got it.
done this one a couple times.
Yeah, like nah, I'm all right. I'm all right. But I am looking forward to getting back into the running, the swing of
Awesome.
things. You know.
Awesome, buddy. Well, I've been a longtime follower of yours, and as you mentioned before we got started,
Likewise.
yeah, we have worked together loosely. You are
Yeah.
our on course correspondent during a Broken Arrow live stream a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
But aside from that, we don't know each other well. But I'm really excited to, as somebody who has followed you, just kind of get to know you a little bit better and learn more about your story. Because from what I can gather, it's a really inspiring one. So we'll have an opportunity to do that here. But I always start these interviews in the same place for everybody, a fun introspective question of just what makes you you when you are thinking about who you are at your core. What are your unique strengths and weaknesses? How do they show up in your life?
Um. Yeah. I think like the past makes me me. Like all the things that I consider like trauma or the things that I've kind of made it through to be here. It kind of makes me me. And I think we'll get into it a bit. But it's always like I try to anchor myself in the past while being in the present somehow,
Mm,
and try to make decisions based on like who I know myself to be now, like even when it comes down to like the way I make decisions or how I ended up being like the course on course correspondent at Broken Arrow Sky Races, like um I've found myself to be more of like a yes type of person than I
mm,
thought I was growing up. Because I feel like I ended up saying no. I ended up saying no to so many things, like things that were on paper clearly should be like the next out, like the next thing you try to do, or a good thing for your life, and I just didn't feel like I deserved them, or couldn't couldn't do it. Wasn't smart enough. Wasn't funny enough. Whatever.
yeah.
So I think now I just find myself to be a yes man because of all the no's that I've been told or told to myself.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I know we're definitely going to come back and expand on that
Yeah,
a
yeah,
little
yeah.
bit.
There's
Yeah,
definitely I had some time to think about this.
yeah,
I had
yeah.
some miles to run, so it's just like let's think about life here.
Yeah, and you said yes to a grand adventure across the American West in the desert landscape between Southern California and Las Vegas. So,
I like the way you said the American West. I haven't heard it said just like that yet, and I think I like that more than just like the desert.
yes, exactly. It's a
Yeah,
romantic place. So,
yeah,
anyway, in our email exchanges as we were setting this up, I noticed that you sign your emails off Serenity, Courage, Wisdom. And I'm
yeah.
pretty sure I just noticed a tattoo on your arm
Oh
that
yeah,
says
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Where does
yeah.
that come from? Serenity,
That's
Courage, Wisdom.
the Serenity Prayer. So it's God
Mm.
grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Ah,
Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah. So
So,
it's like I just kind of like just I've seen it. I was like I have a few tattoos, so I've seen it before, like in like written all the way out, like in cursive or something like that, and I just wanted like like I put them in bold letters too because I just wanted to remember like the core of it all.
yeah. So it's really interesting because I hadn't put that together myself. And the Serenity Prayer is about change, right? And
Hmm.
as I was thinking about our conversation here today, I felt like the grand theme of our chat would be one of personal transformation, of change.
Hmm.
And so that tattoo is representative of, where I expected this conversation to go. And we may as well just sort of jump in there because you do have a really powerful story. And before we start talking about your 340-mile solo journey across the American West, there
Right.
was a lot that led you to that point. So, just going back in time, I know that sobriety is a big part of your personal story and a big part of your journey with
Yeah.
running. So, maybe just first tell me about your introduction to alcohol before we talk about getting sober and like this personal transformation story. Talk
I hope
about
you,
where it started and where it became a problem for you.
I hope you don't have like a hard stop on this conversation. So,
Let's go,
so
buddy.
when I was born, no, but I think where it started for me was, I mean, I had my family has a history of drinking, like especially on my father's side. Um, my dad was a drinker. I'm not sure like what level. I can kind of imagine. He passed away actually when I was 8 years old of a stroke. He was only 39 years old.
Mm.
And my grandfather drank as well. So I kind of like just grew up seeing it. I think probably as like most people probably have, if you have any, if you have a family of drinkers or people that just drink casually, you just kind of like grow up seeing it and it's accepted. And I feel like at some point, not that I thought it was expected of me to, but I think I had like some extra motivation to one day try it. So I think in like I think it was like my senior year actually. Like that was like the first time like I really like drank. I think I've had like sips of someone's drink that I might have made, when I was way too young to even get the whole vibe. Probably didn't like it at all anyway. But in my senior year, a friend brought like a couple like those little bottles, like little shots or whatever.
Yeah, like you get at the gas station or
Yeah,
whatever. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. So he brought a couple of like a few of those because like I guess he had got them from like his mom's like cabinet or something like that. And he's like, "You want some?" I'm like, "Sure." And it was like middle of the day, and I tried it and threw it in like something, and then like at that moment, I just like stopped caring. Like as
Mm.
soon as it like set in, I was like, I wasn't worried about anything. I didn't care what people thought. I felt like free ish. And then at that moment, I knew that was that. Like I knew it's weird because like at that moment I really knew that I'm like this is something that I need to continue to do.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was there a pain in your life at the time that alcohol was dampening?
Um. Yeah. I mean, like yeah, like my dad passed when I was 8, so like I had
Tell me
that.
about that. That's
Yeah.
interesting. I mean, you mentioned he was 39 years old. I'm
Yeah.
personally 39 right now.
I'm 40 now, so it's
Yeah,
like
so
39 was a
that
big year.
I mean, that's actually really interesting, and I've heard other people talk about this who've lost parents of like the significance of when you are officially older than your
Yeah.
parent was when they pass away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Share a
Like
little bit
so.
about that.
Yeah. It was super significant. I mean, actually, because our birthdays are his birthday is 5 days before mine.
Mhm.
So like I've known for a long time, like the actual day, like in February, that I would be older than him by like a day. Like not even on his birthday because his birthday's in August. But I knew like, okay, well, 5 plus, February 19th is a day. And I was actually in Osaka, Japan, about to run a marathon. And my mom came too because she knew like what because I was getting close to that day and I knew it was like an emotional thing. She wanted to be there anyway, so it was like perfect. We're on like the other side of the world. It's far from like where he was able to be at that moment too. So it was it's a really big deal. But losing him like that early was like at some point at sometimes I feel like maybe it was a little slight gift to me because like I didn't like my sister's 7 years older, so she knew him more. Like I can't remember his voice really. I barely can remember his face unless it's like outside of a picture. But I
Mhm.
definitely, as time has gone, that's gotten worse. But like, I just always remember having like this void of like something in my life, and
Mhm.
he was a very like outgoing and like a leader type of person. So like everybody that I know that knew him or everybody that in my family had this huge like picture of him and the way that they talked about him was just so like grand, like it wasn't even like they were doing it for me. Like as I got older, I just realized, oh, like this isn't just like oh, your dad was a great guy. Like it was like he left a mark on people's lives.
Mm.
So it seemed like I had this hole in my life, but then also I felt like I had this standard that would be impossible for me to get to. Not because so much because like he did some really great things like within 39 years. I mean, so that wasn't, but it was more like the type of person he was. I'm not sure, like I never felt like I could get there.
Mhm.
Um, and I didn't have his help to learn it either. So I always just felt like I was like missing something, and I couldn't watch I couldn't watch any movies where like a guy died in a movie. Like it, it could be anything. Like it was like it could
Because
be like a
it
right. It
brought
could be
up
like an
uncomfortable.
action. It could be like an action movie, and the guy dies. Oh, this is I'm in the theater crying. But it was rough for me. I think I'm an emotional person. I don't um as like I'm just close to my feelings. So um
Is that one of
it,
the reasons why alcohol was attractive at a young age? Because
I think so.
one of the superpowers of alcohol is that it mutes
Yeah.
uncomfortable feelings.
Yeah, it does. I mean, and I'm not sure. Like, I think I mean, that surely has something to do with it too. And then, um, I've always kind of felt like I watch myself. Like I feel like a viewer of myself fairly often in a negative way. So I think that my first drink or all of them took that away,
Mhm.
and that observer wasn't always there. So that just made it a little easier for me to just be who I thought I wanted to be.
Right.
Um, But, then we all figure out like that's not the way to go.
Yeah, really interesting. Thank you so much for sharing. So, often in sobriety circles, you hear about these rock bottom moments. And
Mhm.
as we start talking about like personal transformation, in those moments, it's like maybe a time where there's a stark understanding of what the consequences are if you don't change. Did you have a moment like that? Was there
Um,
a time where you decided, okay, I need to transform?
yeah, I mean, I had a bunch of moments like that. Like I knew I was an alcoholic, and I knew I had an issue, very early. I was probably like 21 or 22, and I'm like, this is different than other people's around me. Like I
Hmm.
wasn't naive to that. I just didn't care, and it was serving a purpose. So it is what it is. And as I like got older and had kids, I had my daughter I was 23, and then my son when I was 26. So like as I got older, like I was, the drinking didn't. It just kind of got worse, and I was never like an outside like type of person. Like so, it. I wasn't like at parties going crazy and have to like call for rides home. Like I'm still to this day like I'm very like unless I'm like have to be outside and have to be socializing, I'm always like I'm kind of at home or like in a quiet group.
Hmm.
So I never got in any trouble. Like definitely was like drinking and driving, which is obviously, a terrible, many terrible decisions in a row. Um, but it was more like a feeling, it was more like uh, just like going closer and closer to like this feeling of like desperation, like is zero control over like when and how often I drank. Like
Hmm.
that was not it, when I woke up every day. It wasn't like a question of like how when's my first drink gonna be. It's more like what is it gonna be and how much
Yeah.
even and it was just get to it. And I didn't need to have a reason to or a reason not to. Really, it just was what it was. And it was I just felt closer and closer to like zero control, you know,
Hmm.
and that feels terrible, and especially when you try your best, like, hey, I'm just gonna go a week. I'm gonna drink. I'm not gonna drink for a week, and that seems very doable to like somebody that is like has a decent relationship with alcohol or anything. But then I'd get to like 1 day or 2 days, maybe four if I was lucky. And every time that I tried that, whether it was New Year's resolution or like a night or a day after a hangover, um, every time wasn't able to make it, it just like chipped away at me like every day. And
Hmm.
I explained to my mom one time, like while it was like happening, or maybe like a therapist, I'm not sure. But it just felt like I woke up and lost every day. You know, like I was at no point in like saying like, oh, let's go win the day, or some, carpe diem.
Yeah.
Like it's like literally just I just taken it like a L every day, and it just got to mentally and emotionally, I was just so low, and it was the last time I tried. Like I tried to do it was January 1st, 2017, and that was like obviously like all right, New Year's resolution, we're gonna do this. And my friend, like best friend, like literally like we grew up together. Like he lived with us for like a year, me and my mom, because he just needed somewhere to stay that's a little more stable for him. Like so we've been best friends forever. And he drank, but I think he had a problem too, but like drinking, but he never like admitted to it. So but whenever I would say I wanted to, whether he wanted to or not, he wouldn't say like, "Oh, I was thinking about the same thing." He would just be like, "Oh yeah, I'll do that with you." Like he was always
Yeah.
right there, and he would win. He would beat me every time. Like he would like it was my idea, and then he would somehow like not drink longer than me.
Yeah.
So I think that helped him real think he didn't have a problem. But he's like, "Yeah, let's do it." Like, "Sure, let's do." I'm like, "Let's do a month," and he was like, "Bro, let's just do like 2 weeks. Just to start off at two.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like a cop out. It was like more like
Let's
let's
be
just do what we
realistic.
can. Yeah, let's do
Hmm.
what we can. And then so I make it to like the 4th of January, and we're at his house, and our wives are there, and we're just like having fun, and our wives still drink, so it was like, but everything was good. We made it through the whole night. We're playing cards, we're laughing. I think I'm drinking like Red Bull or something like that because like you got to drink something. And then maybe not even water at that point because it was obviously really early. You're not making like the healthiest decisions. And then like in the middle of the night, like 2 a.m., everybody's asleep. I get like we stayed at his house. I get off the couch like to go to the bathroom or something, and then the kitchen's not even. It's like I took a detour just because I wanted to walk through the kitchen, and then I found myself like pouring a drink. I made it through the whole night. Was really proud when I went to sleep, actually,
Hmm.
and then poured a drink, drank that, and then poured another one, and then drank that in the middle of the night. Everybody's asleep, and then like that was my rock bottom. Like that was like the lowest. Like to that point, that was like the lowest that I had been because it's just like no one's even like it just felt like I had nothing. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
Like
then
you don't have
like
control.
like
There's no
zero.
reason to be doing it, but except for maybe a physical.
Yeah, and and then the time that it was like 2 in the morning, no one's around, and
Yeah.
you're just gonna go back to sleep. Like there was like at that moment in that period that for that hour that I was like maybe 30, 40 minutes I was up drinking.
Yeah.
Like it was like there's nothing happening.
Yeah.
Like there's no reason. There's no one to
It's
watch you or
just
see you.
satisfying a physical
Yeah,
compulsion
and
at that time.
it was just super dark at that point, and then I spent, like, the next few days just, like, wallowing in that, and then my mom called me on, like, the 8th or something like that of January, and she's like, "Hey, how's my son?" or whatever, and I just finally was like, "Just not good," you know? And I blamed it on everything else, but I knew what was happening, and then she's like, "Oh, well, just get, like, some help, you got a job, go to your, like, e employee assistance program." They called, so I filled out the little thing. They called me, and the person asked me how much if I drank and how much, and I was super honest with them. And for the first, I had never really told anybody out loud like how much I was drinking. Told them, and then they got me like air quotes marriage counselor slash like substance abuse professional. And that turns out that that's really what she was. And walked in and told her the truth too. So it was like these series, like 3 moments of truth for me
Mhm.
that I just like said what it was. Like the whole truth will set you free thing is like that was that moment.
Wow.
And
Did you
then
feel like a palpable release of
yeah,
weight?
for
Yeah.
sure. Like telling my mom that I wasn't okay was a big deal because like I just she lived far away and it was like I mean your mom's always gonna ask if you're okay,
Wow. Yeah.
And then, but I told her just things aren't great. And when I told the person over the phone, it was like, wow, that was the first time. But then telling somebody in person, like, just this is how much, and then having her know because she specializes in substance abuse, having her like have all this language, like to immediately follow that up, um, was huge. And that, like, that meant the world. And then she said, "Hey, well, I know somebody that goes to AA. If you've heard of it, he's a really cool guy. He goes every Sunday. I think it was like a Wednesday. And she's like, he goes every Sunday, so you should go. But mind you, like on the 10th of January, I had my last drink at like 10:30, you know, p.m.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, don't wake up in the morning and drink like you normally would if it was there. Don't drink, just go see this person. You can't go there smelling like alcohol, you know?
Yeah.
And then she said, like, so that was like my day, January 11th. And she's like, just go with him. And if you want, just see what happens. So I told myself, okay, I won't drink between Wednesday and Sunday. And technically that was like the far longest I had been able to not drink at that point anyway for a while, since, in a while. So I made it like 4 days, whatever that math is. Didn't drink between my meeting with her. And I walked into this AA place, a like nice suburb area, bunch of nice cars outside. Walk in, it's like middle-aged to older, like white folks. And I'm like, this is a waste of time. Like, because there's
Yeah.
no way that anyone in here is going to hear it. They're just going to think this and that. I was like maybe 10th to share. And the 9 people in front of me, like, all told my story. Like, my story, my emotions, my like thoughts about it, just in their own words. Like, they weren't talking to me. They were saying like, hey, here's how I felt. Like, they weren't even looking at me. Like, they didn't care I was there. They were just sharing
Yeah.
their own stories. And I felt community for the first time in a long time.
Wow. So
And
cool.
then, so that's why, like, part of like my whole thing is like, anyway, maybe we'll get to that too, is like part of this whole thing for me is telling my story as much as possible, and like in a responsible way, and sharing real thoughts. And if I work with brands, it's not to like say this is the best shoe in the world every 10 seconds, but it's like trying to figure out a way to be me in that moment as well, so
Yeah.
that other people, like, people's telling their truth and their stories saved my life.
Yeah.
So that's my goal here.
Thank you, Tommie. Very, very interesting. And I appreciate you being so open. So, as part of this personal transformation, a short time later, it seems like the hole that was left with bad habits, you started
Yeah.
filling with good habits, including
Yeah. Yeah.
taking your personal, physical, and emotional health more seriously. And a lot of that had to do with running. So, talk
Yeah.
about that part of the transformation too. Not only getting rid of the negative stuff in your life, but filling it with positive stuff.
Well, I mean, I think that was like, it was like AA started that whole thing, like, just because, I mean, obviously when they set it up, they know, they kind of know what they're dealing with, so it's like the amount of meetings you can go to, like, people you can, for people out there, it's like, I mean, I'm not trying to, like, it's anonymous, so you're not supposed to talk about it too much, but it's like you can find a meeting anywhere in the country, one to two, like 2 to 3 times a day, if you want to. So replacing, like, having this moment of like, I need something to do, and being able to go to meetings kind of like every day if I wanted to, or, however often I felt like I needed to, was a really big deal. And then I started like to be able to like see myself, which, like, after a couple days, I started to be able to like see myself in the mirror, you know, and I didn't, I started to not like what I saw. I mean, I don't know whether it was like just like the days I needed away from drinking. I started to like look at myself and like, oh, this isn't who I want to look like, and this isn't what I want to be. And then so I started going to the gym, because like that was like my first thought was like, okay, well, I'm a little, out of shape here, and I look like Hank Hill from from
Somebody who's been
yeah, I've
drinking
been
too
drinking
much for
beers.
too
Yeah, I've
long.
been
Yeah.
drinking beers and alcohol for too long. So I started going to the gym, and then I liked like just the movement and getting after it a bit and lifting weights. So I just poured into that. Like I was going to the gym at one point. I know running, there's like streaks in running, but I think I went to the gym 7 days a week for like, I never counted, because like streaks weren't even like popular back then. So
Yeah.
maybe I should have, but it was like maybe a few months where I was in the gym lifting weights of some sort every single day. So
Mhm.
then I just loved like the dedication, because all I did to me was I was super dedicated and loyal to alcohol. Like I doctors said things, family said things. I told myself things. It was like, hey, you got to stop. I blew through all the red lights, of and warning signs of like of in that journey hundreds of different times. And so to me that like I had to look back and say like, hey, we're not going to be ashamed of like this whole part of your life. We're going to look at like the dedication that you had and like the strength and determination that it takes to like just consistently roll that dice.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, you know what, I'm that person. I'm a committed individual. Let's just commit to this. And it felt good. It felt like my choice. It felt like, and you could see the changes. And so I just was there, and I changed my name to like Tommie Guns on Instagram. Cause like, if you go back far enough, you'll see back when I like had like buff, I was pretty buff back then. And I just was like all there, and I liked that it was my choice to suffer.
Yeah.
And that's where like running probably, when I first started running, it was like a year or so after lifting. Um i that's one thing that I know that is why I stayed with the running thing and didn't just move on to something else, because like running to me is just it's just this it's not a quick thing. You don't go like, unless you're running a 100-meter dash, like you don't it's like time in the day. It's an hour a day, or it's maybe 2 hours or 3 hours or 4 hours, whatever you're training for, or whatever your paces are. But it's like this consistent commitment to suffering in a way.
Yeah.
And it just feels to me a lot like it gives me more control to know that I'm choosing the mode in which I suffer.
Hmm.
And I think we all suffer. I mean, I feel like I grew up feeling that pain or that feeling. But we all suffer in our own ways. And I think that whenever you can make a decision to control that narrative and control why and how you suffer, that's where power is. It's not avoiding suffering. I think alcohol is why and what is how I thought I was avoiding the suffer.
Hmm.
Procrastination is like how we avoid suffering. But everything you could name of how if you think in your own life how you're trying to avoid suffering in some way,
Hmm.
um, normally that thing or the result of that choice is negative.
Yeah.
Um, so it's just a constant reminder to me, like
When
just to
the things
to
that
get
you
after
want
it.
are on the other side of the hard decision.
Yeah,
Right. So, wow. I guess continuing on in this self transformation conversation, I'm just becoming cognizant that there's probably people who are listening right now who want to change, right? And change is like really hard, especially
yeah,
like the older you get. Habits are just very hard to break, especially when they've become part of a self-preservation
yeah,
mechanism like substance abuse often is. So if we're going to like talk about the ingredients of successful personal transformation, you mentioned the community you found in AA.
yeah.
Are there other things like that too? Like if again we're putting the ingredients together for successful transformation, because there's a lot of people who are unsuccessful. What would you identify were the most important pieces, maybe aside from the community element?
Well, for me, I mean, like, because I know you mentioned like the rock bottom moments. Like to me, like especially when it comes to addiction, I think people often say like you need a rock bottom moment to like to be the catalyst of like such a huge change. Um, so I think I I would say to I would say that it would don't look for the worst. When people say rock bottom, like we go to like TV, we see like, oh, I'm not that low. But everybody has like their point when it's like, nah, like this habit or this thing is gone too far. You know, I would say look for those moments that you may have had in your life, and you may have had those moments where it's like, wow, like if I wasn't looking for like the worst thing ever, I would have realized like that right there was like is enough for me, and I want to get back to that point and go past.
Hmm.
Um, I just think we have you have to have like you have to have it has to be so personal. Like
Hmm.
your reason to make lasting change, it has to be a personal decision. And that's why people say like that's where the rock bottom part comes in, because you can't, interventions and things like that, like sometimes they work, but maybe that moment happens in that intervention if they're lucky, but oftentimes it doesn't, because there's no personal decision made to make this huge change. Like you have to pick and choose something that really resonates with you for whatever reason. Like if running worked for me or you, or it could be basketball. Like I mean, it could be cycling, whatever it is, or it could just be art.
Yeah.
People find it, whatever it is, it has to mean something to you. So it's like we can read all these books and we can find out what like worked for David Goggins and Tommie Runz and whoever else, and but it all of the point of everybody sharing these stories isn't so we go do the same exact thing as David Goggins,
Yeah.
It's literally just so you can see someone choosing that path. You have to choose that path, and you have to choose to be ready to be as extreme as possible to match what you're fighting.
Yeah.
Habit is in destructive behavior is like climbing Everest, and if you're not ready for that intensity, it's you're just bound to fail. And for me, I needed to tell the truth 3 times, and needed to go to AA a bunch, and I needed to get physical immediately. I needed to start running, I needed to be as extreme or more than I was when it came to drinking. And
Yeah.
I think that's the thing. There's 2 things. You got to choose your own path, and then you have to be ready to, like, if it's a big habit, you got to be ready to just go to war. But like, I mean, honestly, like you have to go. It's real though.
Man, you have such a gift of talking about this, and I really appreciate
I
it.
mean,
And and,
I've
and
had
I,
some
I
time to
love I
talk
love
about it.
this idea of like confronting the intensity of the addiction in your case with the intensity of your new path, right? And like
Yeah,
I think a great example of that is the speed project. There's like what could be more intense or more
yeah,
yeah, just like life changing in a different way than that undertaking. So maybe before we get to that, we won't have time to really cover like the entirety of your history with running, but it's really only been 7 or 8 years that you've been on this
yeah.
new path. And maybe first, before we get to the speed project, you could share a little bit about the World Marathon Majors, which you did last year, because it feels like that was an important inflection point moment in your life and especially in your running career. So maybe just tell us how that opportunity came about and maybe what some of the highlights were.
Well, yeah, I mean, just like a quick backstory. Like I've been like I started running in 2018, and then everything like just kind of snowballed from there. And like with that intensity, I'm like a year in, I'm like I want to qualify for Boston. And then so that led to like the next couple few years of me just like working, training, running marathons, getting better. I qualified after my second marathon for Boston. And then in that process though, like I created a show called the Run Eat Sleep Show, which is now the Tommie Runz Show. And I just started creating things in my life around running. And that led to me working with brands more directly and getting free shoes and stuff like that, and having opportunities to talk to professional athletes and all that stuff. But then it just led to having like good relationships with all these brands. And so 2020, I had going into 2024, I had run 4 of the 6 at the time, 6 world majors, and all I needed was Tokyo and London. I got an invite to be in Osaka in January to run that marathon, and Tokyo was 7 days later. So like I came to brands that were going to be there. I'm like, hey, I'm already going to be there. I'd love to figure out how to get a bib, and it just worked out with Westin Hotels. So I ran with them, and then I already had qualified for Boston. So I'm like, I'm running Boston. Then I worked with New Balance, who I had worked with before, to like help get some other people to New York for the marathon. So I ran London, and then it just kind of happened. It wasn't like, I know there's some folks out there that's like, one of these days I'm gonna run all of them in one year.
Yeah, yeah.
Mine was just kind of like the opportunity for Osaka or Tokyo was so big that I'm like, fingers crossed, if I can get into London too, like then I'm just gonna try to go for all 6. And that
It's just
happened.
the first domino had to fall.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, yeah, Tokyo was a big domino to fall, so it's like, so I just pushed for for that, and it really wasn't like some intention to do this thing that looked amazing or whatever. It was literally just how things have happened for me is just I feel like I'm going in a direction that's meaningful and impactful to me and my family and the people that may watch. And the rest of it just seems like the opportunities have opened up here and there, you know, and I was just able to say yes. And luckily, I like running a lot. So I just kept training and just did them all.
Dude, you just took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to tie that back to the first answer of the
Oh,
podcast.
dang.
You
See,
saying
I
yes
saw it.
to opportunities.
Yeah.
All right. So now let's spend the rest of our conversation here
All
talking
right.
about the most recent yes project, that being the
Yes.
speed project, which you did solo after focusing mostly on marathons. It feels like this was your first real experience of ultra distance. So maybe how did this opportunity present itself? Why did you say yes to it?
Well, I'm like a shot shooter, like, or like I just like making connections, I guess, you know. And so I after I became aware of what the Speed Project was and is, so I think I saw it like the last couple years in a row, and then last year I just shot the guy who one of the founders of it. I'm like, hey, this is amazing. Like, if there's anything I could do to be a part, and I think I might have even envisioned myself being on the side of like working with them in some capacity, like being
Mm-hmm.
there, documenting it or something, like, you know, from my POV. And
Mm-hmm.
so he's like, "Oh yeah, yeah," and it just kind of like I thought, all right, well, that's nothing. Nothing happens with that. And then I saw him again in Berlin when I ran Berlin last year, and he actually like held one of my bottles like during the race, and he's like he tried to hand it to me at like mile 20, and I was just like, "No, we're good." Like, I was in the pain cave, I didn't need it, but we kind of like had a little relationship with that, you know. And then he just reached out to me one day, and because I commented on something, just dropped a fire emoji because they announced it. No, like I'm not shooting my shot to get in this race because that's ridiculous. Like, why would I do something dumb?
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Hey, if you wanna come, you could you could put a relay team together. That'd be sweet. You know, have some people come from like your community." And I'm like, "Sure." You know, like, um, yeah, I think that'd be great. You know, and I already kind of envisioned who I want to be there. And to me, having like, you know, 5, 6 or more like black folks from Detroit come out there to do something wild like that as a relay, I think is amazing. You know,
Yeah.
that's impactful. Like that could people could see that and decide to just do more in their own lives, you know? And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And so I think I might have mentioned like, hey, I think I'm gonna do Speed Project. Like I got an opportunity to be involved in do Speed Project. And three different people were like, oh, you're gonna do solo? And like you said, like the farthest I ever run was 26.7 miles, and that just means you ran the course terribly, you know. And so I'm like, no, I said no so quick to all three of them separately, and then I had to like sit with that. Like I said no so fast and jokingly, like, but meant it so like so deep. Like why are you saying no so fast to this? And then I like had to like sit with that for a bit, and then I'm like, okay, so like if I was gonna do it, you know, if that's even an option still, because he might be like, no, like you just bring the relay out, you know. Um, then I'm like, if I was gonna do it, like why would I? You know, what would make me want to do it? Like what would I have to do to make this make sense? And I had just raised money last year during New York for Release Recovery Foundation. They give scholarships to people looking to or people needing help to pay for rehab because a 30-day stay in rehab is like averages like $7,000 to $10,000.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, oh, I just raised a little bit of money there. I think that it's something like this. If I did it solo, like I probably could raise a little more. So that would be my why. Like that'd be the reason. Other than for myself and the thought of like maybe my brain like breaking a little bit in the desert somewhere, like that kind of like intrigued me a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like just that like more suffer, bring it on.
Yeah.
So I that and then how then like I talked to my coach and she's like, you know, I trained a couple people that do a few hundreds here or there, so let's try see what happens. And so I went back and said, hey, I think I want to do it. And he's like, sure. And I'm like, crap, like
now I gotta do it.
now we're here. And then luckily I was able to work with Adidas. They were able to help out a bunch. They sponsored the trip. They, you know, I wore their gear and their shoes and stuff like that. So the team did as well. And that's like how it happened. It was just like, and I say a lot. I say yes when I finally did say yes to things like that's my thing. Is like I'm a do it now or like never. It'll never happen type of
Mhm.
person. Like if you tell me I need to register for something, like if I can register like in that moment in front of you, like I'm gonna do it. Because if I don't, then I'm gonna think about it. Then I'm just gonna push it back. That's not gonna happen. So like I registered to that thing like right away, and then just put all the pieces together as it was like
Yeah.
as necessary, and got a crew, release recovery, sponsored the van or that we stayed in because it was a 6-day journey, and it was just this like wildly like beautiful experience, and I'm so glad that like we have those moments like especially in addiction too. Like I haven't had thank God that I haven't had any moments of like I haven't relapsed, and I'm going on just when I'm over 8 years now. Um, but there's still moments where like as when you change, and even if you've been changed forever, for a long time, I mean, it seems you still have moments where you have to like take a couple steps back and address
Hmm.
that decision that you made, even though you're the only person that knows that you made that decision or said that thing or whatever. You have to like reconcile that, to me, because if you
Yeah.
don't, like those like hidden little like skeletons in the closet, like they start to grow and they start to like be something that could like linger later. And it seems really petty and whatever, but I
No,
had to, yeah,
what you're saying is that at a certain point you have to be accountable to yourself, and that you're the
100%.
only person that will hold yourself accountable,
Yeah.
and that it is easy to hide and lie if you wanted to, and that only you would know, and that you would have to live with that, and that would be a huge burden to carry too.
Yeah. And I think that burden just gets heavier, and then then eventually you reset back to like, what you leaned on before.
Yeah.
And and that, like when you said earlier, like the serenity prayer is about change for sure. But to me, serenity prayer to me is power and control,
Mm.
because in it, it's just reminding you have zero control. And the only, well, you have control, but you have zero control over anything around you, people, places, things, none of that. Like the only thing you have control over is you, and that's
Yeah.
it. And that's all you're in that prayer. All you're doing is asking for clarity to see that, strength to change the things that you can about yourself, and then like the wisdom to know when like you can't change certain things,
Yeah. God.
people or places. So like so to me, like the control in moments, you have to go back and check yourself. Like be real, bro. Like like you have to be honest with you at least,
Yeah.
and it's just it'll come back to haunt you. So like even in that moment, I'm like I got to go back and see like why did I say that, and why, and I didn't like my answer, because the answer was just straight up just no because I don't think I can, or no because what if I fail, or no because black folks don't do that,
Hmm.
and all those are dumbass reasons to say no, so it's
Yeah.
like let's maybe if I didn't say no so hard, I would have done relay,
Yeah.
but I said no so deep to my core that it's like you got to answer for that.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm aware that maybe some of our audience is not as familiar with the speed project. So just
Okay.
quickly, the high level details are it's about 340 miles between Santa Monica and Las Vegas. Most people do it as a relay, as Tommie is articulating here. Few brave souls do it solo, including yourself. And you can sort of take whichever route you want, as
Yeah.
far as I understand. And you mentioned that you guys just had a magical experience out there. I've never attended myself, but everybody who I know who has been to the Speed Project, whether as a participant or as a casual observer, has said that it is like a life changing,
Yeah.
magical, wild experience to do as a runner. So,
Yeah.
if it's possible to capture that essence in words, I would love for you to give it a shot, because it seems like you have that skill, and I'm sure our audience would
Man,
appreciate
dude,
feeling it.
I've been trying so many times to figure this out. Um, I- like it was before I did it, it was impossible. While I was doing it, I thought it was impossible, and then after I finished it, I still think it just felt impossible. It was just one of those like experiences where you to me it felt like you had opportunities to meet yourself so many times. There's too many points where you have to negotiate like why you're doing this, how you're doing this, and it's such a pure thing. Because I mean, often like in life, you don't have hopefully you don't have like your hardest moments like 5 times a day in normal life. Like I mean, hopefully, I mean, if you do, we gotta go. We got other issues we gotta talk
Yeah,
about.
yeah.
But it's like you just have this. There's so many lows during the day that you're in constant communication with yourself. Even when somebody's like is running with you, it's really just you, because at that point you're at 180 miles in. The person that's running with you is only at like 10 for the day, and it's just a different vibe, and you're still only the only one doing it, and it's just a lonely thing, but then at the same time, outside of like my mother, and taking care of me when I like, when I was an infant, I've I've never felt so supported. It's like you wake up day after day, go to sleep. You wake up with a group of people that's their full intention is to help you get from LA to Vegas.
Mhm.
And then all day they just focus on what you're doing, how you're feeling, what you need. Then you go to sleep all at the same time because everybody needs sleep. Then you wake up. When you wake up, everybody's up because everybody's trying to make sure that you're good. And then they just do that day after day after day. And I'll forever have a tie to these people. I mean, I did already because I brought none of us knew what we were doing. Just for like none of us had run an ultra. nobody had nobody had done the relay before. It's like no one had any experience with any of this. All we've all done is marathons.
Yeah, yeah.
And so this was all, big shout out to Malcolm Banks from New York. He's done solo 3 times. So he was on a few calls with us, really like getting my team like in order, like, hey, this is what you need to be thinking about, and getting me in a good space. And I'm not even really doing a good job explaining like this process, but
No, you
it was
are.
just it's so many different things. Like, um, it was just so, I mean, it was so magical just because like there's you just don't have an opportunity to like simulate like that much adversity that many days in a row, and then but you're still going somewhere.
Mhm.
Like it's one guy, this guy Cody from Nashville. I ran with him for like 20 miles the first day, off and on, because like as you're going, you just pass and you link up again and all that. And he had done ultras, a bunch of them before. He just kept saying like relentless forward progress, and that was day one. And I'm like, oh, okay, so it doesn't matter like how fast, really, as long as you're like moving forward. Like
Mhm.
you can't just sit still, and that's life. If you like, that's if you had to say 3 words for life, a good life is a relentless forward progress, no matter what. Because sitting still, looking around, wallowing in whatever else just happened, all those other miles, like you're kind of screwed, like, because everything's still going. The distance is still the distance. You still have to, I guess you don't have to keep going, but our goal is to keep going.
I love it. So, serenity, courage, wisdom is 3 words. Relentless forward
Yeah,
progress, another very good 3 words.
yeah,
I don't know if this is something that you'll find interesting, but I don't know. It's just kind of bouncing around in my head that maybe it's a tired metaphor, but we talked about having the rock bottom moments and navigating sobriety, and I think you've experienced that in sport too.
mhm.
And so maybe you could share if there was any moments of like crisis out on the course
Yeah,
where there was self-doubt, and maybe how, if there's ways that you've identified that your experience navigating some of these personal issues has helped you navigate those
yeah,
issues when you're out running athletically with lower consequences, right?
yeah. Well, I like, for to answer like the last part, like I've always said, like I'll never experience lows so deep and like dark as when I was drinking.
Mhm.
So it's easy at moments, if I can like be present and really think about it while it's happening. Like it's never as bad as life before this. So that kind of puts things into perspective, and I'm able to, most of the time I'm able to kind of move through. And even out there, it's just like, let's just, I've had years of practicing to like remind myself to be like right here, and be present. Because I think the past, like, obviously led to a lot of decisions, I've made in my life, good and bad, and a lot of bad. So you often just have to like remind yourself, like, just to be right in this moment, and just check in like now, because I've always said, and even more so now, like, if you're running a marathon or whatever you're running, oftentimes the difficulty and the struggle that we feel like we're experiencing is more weighted because we know how many miles we have left.
Hmm.
And when you're able to just pull back, and like I was kind of joking and talked about like brain off a lot during this training block,
Yeah.
because a lot of it I had to run on the treadmill. Like I did a couple like 3 hour, 3.5 hour runs on the treadmill, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Um,
You got to
but
make some
so
merch with that on it.
yeah, I need to
Brain
stop
off.
saying it and just start. And you said that, and watch, I'm gonna get off the thing, and I'm gonna probably have like a shirt like drafted by like the end of the week.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you have to like be able to like turn all that off, and then just because once you realize that like right now in this moment, we're okay. A lot of
Mhm.
times we're really okay right now, but we have things to deal with in the future. You know,
Yeah.
so like that was like one of those things like that just kept coming up when things would get really rough. So I'll give you two examples of things that were like was rough. So the first day I ran 64 miles, and that was literally double what I had ever run in my life in a day. Day one out the gate, double what 32 was the most I had run, and
And you
that
still
was
have
like
280 to go afterwards. Come on.
you can't at that point. There's no math to be had to be done. But like that was so I had run 32 miles 3 weeks before that, like as part of training. So I did double, and I was super proud. It felt really beat down. We stopped near a hotel, so I'm like, we're just gonna be in the hotel first night to kind of reset, to get a shower.
Yeah.
And so we all in there. Like I go in and I'm in the lobby by myself, and I'm thinking I'm fine. I'm just like moving like I ran a marathon, maybe. And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden things started happening. Like I didn't pass out, but I like had to like lay down fast, like because I was about to pass out. So I
Yeah.
got to my hotel room and I'm like, I can't do this. Like this is day one. I can't do this like 5 more times. It's
Yeah.
not gonna happen. But I woke up the next morning and then just like, okay, yesterday's yesterday, today's today. Just be present and just try to get after it. And then like the next 3 days were fairly okay. I had some rough, some pains that I was trying to push through after day four, and that kind of like slowed the progress down a lot.
Yeah.
But the only moment where I feel like I was gonna quit was Saturday morning, which ended up being the last day. We had 73 more miles left, and this thing I had been dealing with for 3 days at that point was like it kept me from. I couldn't like step into the trailer. Normally, I had to like kind of like left foot up first and kind of drag the ride up. So I was like, I couldn't really walk very well, and I was running was even weirder. So that morning, I really couldn't walk. Like, I mean, it was just like kind of like shuffling in this weird way. And I'm like, this is gonna take forever. I felt bad for the people I was out there with, because now instead of maybe finishing today, we're gonna finish maybe in 3 days. I don't know. So I'm like, I came back to the trailer. It took me 2 hours, I think, or so, to like go a mile and a half, 2 miles, because I kept going like very short increments and getting back in the trailer
Yeah.
to like try to work on it. And then eventually I looked at everybody and I was like trying to like visual, like have them look in my eyes and see that I was done, so
Yeah.
that they could give me an out, because I wasn't gonna quit.
Yeah.
But I'm like, if you could just tell me like let's wrap this up. We're so close to Vegas. We could just drive. Like literally 70 miles drive is nothing.
Yeah. We'll be there
Uh,
in an hour and a half. Yeah.
yeah, and we could, we could play slots. I'll pay for everybody's room, whatever. But nobody said it. They all looked at me like almost like they were talking to themselves and were just like, hey, we're all here for you. And like I was literally gonna quit that day. But then after that, I just like sucked it up, got it together, and then ran 73 miles that day. And started at like 5 a.m. and then finished at like 3 a.m., Sunday morning. And so like that was like the moment where I think, not to get like too, poetic or whatever, but it's like one of those moments where it takes everything for you to keep going. Like it requires you to dig deep within like your past, why you're doing it, what you want the future to mean, what you want other people to take from this moment, all the things that you can pull. But then you also have to have community. You also have to have people that know and believe in what you're doing, know and believe that you can do what you're aiming to do, and are and willing to be there with you during it. Like that is like the and if I pray that like my kids or myself, whoever, like has the moment in life where that happens for them, and they're able to pull from all of those things and make it happen, and I hope that I have an opportunity in like my normal life every day to like have a moment where I have to pull from all that, and I have family and community there to help me make that decision or take that step. um and I think that's people have that way when they start businesses out of the blue,
Yeah.
whether they make career changes, decide to start a family, whatever it is. But it was just beautiful to like I feel like I lived my life again in 6 days, but just did it with more knowledge and like wisdom of like how to not just fall apart and lean on every crutch possible.
Oh. All right. So you arrive on the Las Vegas Strip at 3 o'clock in the morning. There's
Oh
probably
God.
some questionable characters out there finishing up a
I
long
wish
night.
there was. It was like nothing. It was like nobody. Because you go to the old Las Vegas sign, and you kind of
Yeah,
go
yeah.
around. Like you don't even go through the big strip.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's not even as fun as you think. Like you think it'd be like, oh, I'm gonna run through, I'm gonna see the little bubble thingy.
Yeah,
You
the
think all
sphere.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean you could see it, but it's in the distance. So you're not running through the fun part of Las Vegas. And it was like when I tell you, like, so because I did the OG route. So the OG route is the 340 route.
Yeah.
And so after me finishing it, I'm the third person that's ever finished solo that route.
Okay.
Like you said before, you can go any way. There's so many points where you could just turn.
Yeah.
Like there's this thing called power line where the last point you can get on it, I believe if you turned right there, the run would be, I think it would be like 310 miles or 300 or something like that.
Yeah.
But if you go straight on Death Valley Road, if you keep going that way, it's going to be only the soonest you can get back is 340 miles,
Yeah.
And so like at that point when I decided to go straight, it felt like so dumb. Like, you could just go right here.
Yeah.
Like this is
Just adding
ridiculous.
50K
Yeah.
onto it. Yeah.
Just go ahead and add like some ridiculous amount of miles on. But it was like at the last day or that morning, you have to like climb that mountain that you can see when you're in Vegas. That's 10 miles of like 1500 feet of elevation gain. My problem was like the down because my hips were so jacked up
Yeah.
that it took me 5 hours to go 10 miles because it was like I had to walk down the whole thing. So by the time I got to flat ground and I was like could see that I was 4 miles out, that the longest 4 miles of my life, I think I was cussing and like I was pissed because it's like I know my watch said I had more to do, but I just wanted to be there and be over with. So
Yeah.
like, but I finally got to the sign. And the cool thing is like the relays start on Friday. We start Monday, they start Friday.
Yeah.
And as that last day was happening, like relays were passing us already. So
Wow.
it was kind of cool to see their energy because it was, oh yeah, that's cool. Like they're having fun. They're running, 800-meter,
Yeah. Yeah.
intervals, mile
Yeah. They're
intervals. So
doing
they're
like
moving.
5 minute pace and handing
Yeah,
the
they're doing like
baton to the
5 minute
next
pace.
guy. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're like giving us some encouragement, like, oh man, you're doing solo, you got it.
Like it took me 2 hours to
Bro,
go a mile.
bro. They said you're almost there. And I maybe at that moment I could have chased them down to like try to like have some words with them, but like you're almost there. I'm like, bro, it's like 40 miles. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
But so by the time I get to the sign, there was still people kind of around because other relays had stopped. There was like maybe 20 people just kind of lingering because like, relays were expected to be in a little bit or whatever. But it was just like this moment of like, as I was like running up, I did run like jog the last like, quarter mile or so for sure. Cause a lot of walk run, but
Yeah.
jogged the last quarter mile. And like, as I was approaching it, like people kind of like got out of the way slowly.
Yeah.
And I just remember them like parting a bit. And then like, there was this little small hill, it's a stupid little hill. Like it's man-made actually. And I like had to stop for the hill. And then like I just like slowly walked up to it and I just like touched it like super light, like I just felt like I don't even know I
Yeah.
remember it kind of vaguely, and I was thinking about it yesterday before I knew we were going to talk. All of my memories of the Speed Project, I see me
Mhm.
like like every view that I remember, not from this like from at this point, I see me seeing the view,
Mm.
which is strange, but it's really nice though. Like it's a weird way to remember it, but I can see me in every moment that I remember.
You said that
Yeah,
earlier too about when we were talking about sobriety, and that like
yeah,
you've almost maybe always had that
like
style of maybe self-criticism or something is how it used to manifest, and now it's
yeah,
like your ability to actually observe yourself doing incredible superhuman things. It's an amazing
yeah, and
evolution.
like I was totally watching myself when I was in Death Valley. I realized I was the only human being within 2 mile radius because my van had gone up, and then so I just started like screaming, like this because I just like how often will you be able to scream this loud and no
Just
one
get
be
it
able to
out,
hear you? You know.
process it. Yeah.
But yeah, man, it was a beautiful experience.
Tommie, you are the man, dude. It's been so fun to chat with you here.
I
Of course,
appreciate
as
this.
you know, you're talking to basically exclusively a trail and ultra running audience here.
Yeah, don't
So,
guys, don't judge me if like as I was so nervous, like I'm like, yo, like people are gonna be like, dude hasn't even run,
yeah, right.
Like I think I've run two real trail races. One real trail race, I guess. Some people say like Michigan doesn't have any real trails, which I beg to differ. But I ran the 11K in Broken Arrow Sky Race,
Yeah,
and that was some elevation.
that's a legit race. Yeah,
That's legit. Okay, if you say it's legit,
that's very
everybody's
legit.
listening.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, everybody's listening. Dylan said I'm legit. But honestly, at this point, bro, like if I would 100% run 100 miler,
Let's
like
go.
not easy, but I'm saying like that's an easy choice now.
Hey, well, first and foremost, you can jump straight to the 100 miler if you want, but I would also love to invite you to both of our races next year if you feel compelled. We'll send you a
Okay.
note after the fact, but it'd be
Oh
an
yeah.
honor to host you and to try and indoctrinate you a little bit more into the trail culture. But yeah, I mean, I guess the theme of the show is transformation, right? And the speed project itself was, I think, a transformative experience for you, but also maybe it encourages you to think about your running in new ways. And maybe there's going to
Mhm.
be a trail transformation in the future
Yeah, I
for
mean,
Tommie Runz.
I'm all right with that.
Tommie Trails, come on,
Tommy
dude.
Trails.
Well, dude, honestly, this has been one of my favorite episodes in recent memory. It's a joy to just chit chat, and I appreciate all your honesty and openness about your entire story. I feel like we should do more of this in the future. I end all these episodes in the same spot, which is just a uniform question that is a fun, feel good way to finish. And that is just, who is one person that you admire? Can be inside or outside of sports, living or dead. Why do you admire that person?
um, I like I normally I say like Nipsey Hussle just because like how he looked at his career as a rapper, how he looked at his career and how he looked at the community and building and business and stuff like that. But because of this interview, that like just how much it meant and means to be able to talk to you and about something that was so impactful to me, I'm gonna say my mom because she's the reason why I am the way I am when it comes to like just do and just move forward, and just continue to reach, even if you're not really sure like what you're reaching for or what to do with it once you grab it,
Yeah.
But she's not told me that, but she's lived that life. Like she's lived constantly moving forward. She raised me and my sister by herself. She's just this strong like woman that wherever she goes, she finds herself in moments of like opportunity. So
Mm-hmm.
this one I guess would be her because I look up to her.
Shout out, mom. Can you share a little bit about Nipsey Hussle? I don't know a
Okay.
lot about his story except for
Yeah.
basically what you mentioned. I know he was tragically murdered a few years ago, and there was it was he had a major impact on his community. So I'd love for you to share a little bit about that.
Yeah, like definitely a rapper, he was in, grew up in like in LA, in where if you know LA, like in communities, it's gangs is a thing. Like that's just like a way of life. And so he found himself in that, but started to rap, make music all through that. But as he got older, like, cause I started listening to him, kind of well before that, but as he was getting older, like you could start seeing that he had other interests in, to create a better and bigger life, for himself other than like talking about, gangs and violence and what the streets have to offer in that sense. So, and as he grew, he didn't shy away from like sharing that in his music, which I think, a lot of us in many different ways don't do. As we grow, we just do it with what we think is making the money. But he changed his narrative in his story, and especially in his interviews, he just talked about all the things he was into. He
Mm,
was like one of the first people I really heard like talk about crypto in that way of like using it outside of just like Bitcoin. Like it was
mhm,
more about like systems and things like that. But he was always trying to learn something and always open to share the information that he was learning, even if they were there to talk to him about music. He was talking about that plus all the things that he's learned in ways that you could do whatever you need to do. And that's why I try to do my interviews too, where we're supposed to be talking about running, but then we're talking about transformation, we talk about other things. But he was just like, left too early too. So it makes you kind of dig into more about all that
yeah,
stuff that he was doing. But if you listen to his interviews, it was just, I see me in so many different ways, because it's like, I've been through things that like I don't talk about really like on, pods, just because it's like so far from running. But, I'm blessed to be here. Like not even just like on the alcohol side of things. Like I'm just like if I told my kids, like if we were talking about something and I was like just trying to like make sure that they make decisions and don't repeat decisions I made. And I'm
mhm,
like, because if I had to do what I went through again, I wouldn't be like, I know I wouldn't be alive, because it's
mhm,
like I don't know how I am, alive at this point. But so and then for him to be murdered, I think it's like at 32, 33. um it's just rough, and that just reminds us that like we're all blessed to have the opportunity to like make even a bad decision today. We're
yeah,
all blessed for that. But if I could just, I know it's probably going a little longer than you want, but if I could say one more thing too, because I've mentioned him in this, and I raised money for release recovery, and that was a big deal, and I was leading up to that, and I knew that for months, so I already had my link and all that stuff. I've been sharing it and trying to get people to all that. Like we had probably raised like $2,000 at this point. But then like 9 days before TSP started, the best friend that I talked about earlier that was always there for me, and I was there for him for a lot of things, but he tragically passed away. That's like the 2 Saturdays before TSP started on Monday. It's like 9 days, and the the it's not like super clear, but like the circumstances surrounding like him passing is a lot of it's very close to like what we're talking about today. um and so if anybody takes anything from this, like, no shade to TSP, but whatever, if you take anything from this, like it's just know that you're blessed to have the choice to make the chance to make decisions right now.
yeah,
So just try to make those decisions that you'll just be thankful for in tomorrow or a year.
yeah,
But just know that like I'm here if anybody needs anything, because you know it just
yeah.
means a lot to be able to share some of this story.
Tommie, you're the man, dude. What a beautiful way to end this conversation. We are all blessed to be on planet Earth, to be able to
Yeah.
make decisions, good or bad, and to have hopefully, the serenity prayer in our minds where we have the wisdom to know the things we can't change, but maintain
Hmm.
peace and sovereignty over the things that we can. And I think that's a
100%.
great message to take from today's episode. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I'll make sure to share a link to the Release Recovery fundraiser in the show notes. We'll make a donation ourselves on behalf of yourself through Free Trail. And
I
yeah,
appreciate
hopefully
that.
we can make some positive change in the world together.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Tommie Runz. Chat soon, buddy.
Peace out.